Hello everyone, welcome back to Gilded Shadows. We're gonna do Magnus's second bad ending today, and I've skipped ahead a little bit because it was all choices that we had seen before. This is Morgan's analytical personality that we had seen from the sweet ending and the last bad ending. And it was a mixture of bad and good choices to get to this point. Mostly good, though. Most of the stuff that we had picked in Magnus's passionate ending before we got here, with a couple of different ones from the bad ending before. But now we're starting with a different choice. So this is the one I didn't pick last time, and then we'll continue from here. I think there's a couple more choices coming up that we haven't seen yet, and then some that we have that are repeats, but might be a little bit different because of Morgan's personality. So there you go. We're going to try to reactivate our system on principle. I should just try to reactivate the system on principle. If they were trying to prove a point by locking me up, then I could prove a point by reactivating my system. Of course, there was no doubt I'd be digging myself a bigger hole, returning their tactics with something similar. I knew the result, but learning they were willing to turn cameras on in my flat without my knowledge, that they'd placed them there in the first place, it was wrong. It was illegal. Endgame was, of course, in many ways above laws normal agencies were held to, but they couldn't be above the law in general. They couldn't do things like this. Otherwise, it meant that we, as Espers, had fewer rights than normal citizens. That I couldn't accept. I sat on the sofa and pulled my feet up under me. The problem was that I wasn't actually sure how to manipulate the nanosystem. I might be able to mimic Magnus. We had been working on that, mimicking someone without having just been in contact with them. But mimicking a psi wavelength wasn't the same as knowing what to do with my abilities once my psi was in that form. Even so, I shut my eyes and focused my sight inward, imagining my own colorless psi. Right. Magnus's psi was violet. A violet so deep it looked almost black in the most dense places. And his psi was incredibly dense, even more so than the other guard members too. And its structure was strange. Complex and somehow less organic than the others. Honestly, it was a wonder I'd ever mimicked it at all. As I imagined the dark color flooding into my psi, I also attempted to restructure mine to match what I remembered of his. Like everything else they had tried to teach me to do with intent, it was much harder than accidental. My face scrunched up as I solidified the reverse cage around myself, trying to thread my psi into a more structured shape. Pale violet washed in, nowhere near the same color as Magnus's though, and the shape was loose, flowing. Ugh, why was I able to do it when I was asleep, but I couldn't manage it now? Figures. I finally flopped over with a frustrated groan. If I'm not trying to get in trouble, I get in trouble, and if I am trying, my abilities won't cooperate. That is very frustrating. Somehow that was so like me, so on brand. I stared up at the ceiling, wondering what would happen going forward. What if it turned out I couldn't function in this place? That their insistence on treating me like an enemy within the ranks made it too much a struggle to continue? Clearly, people left. They weren't meant to. They weren't allowed to, but they did. What if it came to that? Would I be able to muster the resolve to leave? No, I knew I would. But what then? Where would I go that they couldn't find me? I clutched the pillow to my chest and squeezed my eyes shut. In the end, I didn't want to think about it. I wanted to make this work. I really was trying. But they wouldn't believe me. Are we... Okay, still. I sulked most of the day. Not terribly productive, but it made me feel... Well, no, I couldn't even argue it made me feel better. Sometimes I suppose one just needed a good sulk, so that's what I did. Off and on, I tried to mimic Magnus's ability, but could never quite get it right. Alright. Does this play out any differently? No. Okay, so we survived the night. That's something. We made it past the first bad ending. And now this time, we don't get to hug my boy, I don't think, right? No, I don't. I'm analytical now, not affectionate. That wasn't the case for you, was it? Lethe did something to you. His face darkened for an instant, but the look passed back to neutrality despite the words that came next.
She destroyed me, Morgan. Everything I once was. Even now, though I know what I was like back then, I don't remember it. It's unlikely I ever will.
How did it happen? Why?
Because I was too human, and when they threw away other people for my sake, I suppose the pain of it was too much to bear. I have no memory of it, but I could piece together a picture of those events from someone else's memory of it. Like trying to fit back together the pieces of a broken vase. Of course, after something breaks once, you can never quite put it back the way it was.
I don't understand.
It began with a stupid plan, as it usually does. I said before that any king can control the AI, which is true. But there is only one king that knows the physical location of the mainframe. With the AI disconnected from the net, there's no way to infiltrate their systems. It's like grasping at a ghost. But if you have a physical location you can reach through to connect, it becomes much easier.
Are we back on... Okay, not yet. Okay, this is all new explanation.
After the creation of Endgame, all the terminals in Control House were destroyed, except the primary location, in Avalon, where most believe King is sleeping. The King ranks of Endgame know where that location is, so of course we're targeted for that information. Nyx wanted me. They always want me. Or what I can do, anyway. Any other king would struggle to find their way to Avalon, but I can find it, take it over, and give control of this planet to anyone who wants it. We're used to these kinds of plots to draw me out. But that time they set a trap, a clever one we didn't see coming. We walked straight into it. In an instant they captured multiple high-ranked Espers, but they weren't the target, of course. Nyx, I think, believed Endgame wouldn't sacrifice so many for just one. They were wrong. Vanessa was the only one who survived, and you've seen what happened to her.
The prosthetics were from that incident, then. Her injuries must have been terrible.
The others were simply casualties, our queen among them. Perhaps if the council hadn't been at odds with Sylvia, they wouldn't have thrown her and her people away. But she had a replacement, and I was deemed more important. I did not cope. Those were my teachers, my classmates, my friends.
He let out a hollow laugh, shaking his head.
The irony is that now, I can't even remember the love I had for them back then. I can't remember the feeling of my world shattering, but it must have. From what I've seen, I would have turned myself over to Nyx. I tried to. There are still recordings of those meetings. It's like watching a stranger. The current me can't even imagine experiencing that level of panic. I suppose knowing so many were sacrificed for me was too much. As a result, I experienced what you might call a psychological breakdown. And of course, we can't have that. We can't have another malfunctioning king. Not when we've gone to so much time and expense to build this one. To them, I'm just a tool. Relationships, bonds, feelings are meaningless. So when those things were perceived as a burden, they took them away from me.
Sheesh. I just want to hug him so bad. Every time he keeps telling me, like, new things as I keep going through these endings, and it just makes me want to hug him even more. Ah, it's terrible. The more I listened to him almost dispassionately describe how they destroyed him, the more anger I felt towards those people. And the more I somehow wanted to repair the damage done to both his mind and his heart. But of course, something like that you couldn't just heal because you wanted to. Even if he spoke without emotion, on some level it had to hurt.
Lethe's abilities were quite erratic back then. Memory manipulation isn't an easy skill to master, and she was yet new at it. She had just lost her best friend, too. Her sister's life was hanging by a thread. Who knows what went wrong? My first real memory is waking up in the infirmary as an empty shell. I barely remembered how to feed myself. You could say that my personality was wiped clean, almost. There were fragments. Precious few fragments of who I was before. Just enough to worry me and let me know something was wrong. What happened to me? Why was I incomplete? I had no answers.
I'm so sorry. By comparison, I was lucky. Now, what he said earlier made sense. He'd said, every important part of you is intact. I at least had myself, my memories, my bonds.
You're looking so sad again. You don't have to be upset for me.
How can I not be upset by that? What they did to you is wrong. Just deeply and unconscionably wrong. How could you even stay here after that?
Where else would I go? A person without a past, without an inkling who he was supposed to be. This tower is the only thing I've known. The only thing I knew from the brief span of memories at my disposal in those early days after I woke up.
I can't imagine staying here after finding out the truth. I can't imagine not having options.
This place drains away all other options, doesn't it?
That makes it even less right!
You're quite charming when you're angry.
How can you tell that story without getting angry?
Perhaps all my anger is spent. Is there even any value in getting angry anymore?
That just seems so defeatist. Though I knew if there was a sense of defeat in his words, it was brought from years having nowhere else to go. Music change? Music change. I'm just sad again, because of course I is. Okay, what are we doing here? I need to get away from Sad Town. Alright, I'm hiding behind my guard this time. Get away from me, Lethe. When the others moved in front of me, I decided to let them handle the situation. I wasn't sure I was equipped to face Lethe yet. Not that I was afraid of her. But to me, she was almost like the face of the council. At the very least, she was feeding them information or thoughts about this dangerous future that I was somehow involved with. In my room that night, she may have just been following orders. Perhaps she had no idea why she was there or what they were doing. But I had no way of knowing, and could only see her as one of the enemies. I didn't want a confrontation yet.
So you're all going to let her hide behind you. Our job is to let her hide behind us when she needs to, lady.
Caleb, stop making me love you. I'm just calling Lethe lady.
Or maybe you forgot that. We failed her once. We won't do it again.
Hearing him say they failed me by letting people into my room that night stirred mixed feelings. Gratitude, guilt, some level of comfort, too.
Ronnie, what do you want? You should have known beforehand that coming here was a bad idea.
Are we... okay. Not yet.
Of course you'd walk the most difficult path. You always do. All of you. Morgan Leone included. And thus you force the rest of us on those difficult paths as well. This could have been so much easier for us all. Damn it, Veronica! This isn't about difficult paths or whatever the hell the future holds. This is about right now, and this is about what you people tried to pull the other night. Don't make this about your damn abilities!
When Lethe spoke again, her voice had softened. A little. It was almost unnoticeable.
I only came here to speak with her, Vanessa. Then you may do it with us here. As I recall, your last attempt at a conversation did not proceed without incident. That was hardly an attempt at conversation. Then what the hell was it? Because we still don't have an explanation for what happened. If they meant you to know, they would have told you already.
Wait. Did that mean... I stepped around Ari without thinking. Do you even know why you were there? What they were doing?
Do you?
Magnus and I hadn't told the others what had happened. There were a lot of implications for blowing the lid off that secret. The council wasn't aware knowledge of that program had leaked, so I didn't respond to her.
Do you intend to let me speak to you or not?
Is there a reason to hear what you say? I don't agree with your council or anything they do. Do you think more talk about this mysterious future will change that? She looked at me a long time.
No. Perhaps you won't believe me anyway. I had hoped... Your enemies are not who you think they are, Morgan Leone.
Are we... Okay, now we're back. Alright. This is the option I'm most interested in, because I'm morbidly curious and terrified. So, we're gonna tell them the truth a little earlier this time and see how that goes for us. Magnus had kept the cloning program a secret, and it was a revelation that had the potential to blow the top off this entire situation. So many revolutions needed the tiniest of sparks to explode, and this was a big spark, and there was no way I could hide it. I would say we have a pretty solid hypothesis going.
Were you ever planning on letting us in on it?
Not really.
Damn it, Magnus! This is why I can't fucking stand you!
Oh? All this time I thought you were just bad at expressing your feelings.
Caleb, please calm down.
Morgan, what exactly happened that night?
I looked up at her, gaze flicking to Magnus again.
Stop looking at him and just tell us.
The cloning program's existence was a problem, but revealing it also meant revealing Magnus was a clone. It didn't change who he was, but it could change people's perception of him. That wasn't my story to tell, so I wasn't sure how much to reveal. It's not something easy to reveal, and it's not something that only affects me. Besides, I don't have a clear memory of it. It was a blur, and there were sedatives involved. But I think they were taking blood samples. Or trying to. Ari starts squinting like, what?
For what reason were they taking blood samples?
I didn't ask. Well, I guess I technically did, about 3 seconds before I freaked out.
That makes no sense. Medical samples. But why? What were they going to do with something like that? I can think of one person who definitely knows.
A look of comical surprise passed over Magnus's face.
Why is everyone looking at me? Because Caleb is talking about you, Magnus. What?
Is this where we all pretend to believe you don't know what's going on?
I have no idea what you're talking about, Caleb.
Yes, you do!
She slammed her hands on the table, almost upsetting Vaughn's glass of water.
Mara, it's... No! No! Vaughn, you know I'm right about this!
He does consistently hide things from us. Haven't we accepted this already?
You weren't always like this, Magnus. What the hell happened to you? And why does it take someone coming in from the outside before we can sit here and talk like this? Everyone's acting shocked and shaken at what happened to Morgan. Are we going to pretend it wasn't the council that got Sylvia killed? That almost got Vaughn killed? And whatever the hell they did to Magnus? Well, I've always wondered about that too.
I believe I've explained to you that you're mistaken about.
You haven't explained a damn thing! You haven't trusted a person here in how long? Not one of us. Not since then. Damn it, Magnus! We've known you for years and you can't just tell us?
Magnus's face went stiff when she said that.
My, you are being volatile tonight, Mara. The mood is quite ruined now, wouldn't you say?
His voice took on that frigid edge I hadn't heard in a long time. It was like a door clicked shut, locking everyone else outside. And it told me he had no intentions of revealing the clone situation. Not yet.
Forget it! I'm out!
She stalked to the door, pausing only once to glance back.
We can't help either of you if you won't tell us the truth.
And she was gone. Vaughn quickly followed her.
I'm going to follow and make sure Vaughn talks her down before she lodges herself in the wall or something again.
She's done it before?
Last time, she fell through one because she was mad. She lost her shirt and the class of rookies got quite the show.
Lucky rookies. And she was gone as well, leaving me with Magnus, Ari, and Caleb. Maybe I should have said something, but I had the feeling this had been building for a while, and everyone but me had so much history together. It didn't feel like I could say anything in the midst of all that.
Please with yourself, Magnus.
Caleb, you should be aware there are things all of you are better off not knowing. Some of us are untouchable for the time being, but others are not. Sometimes ignorance is safety. That was a foolish question to ask.
Oh? Dropping the facade now?
Magnus stood, moving towards the desk.
Your job is to train Morgan and protect her, not to be told all her secrets.
But you're entitled to them.
Do you think anyone in this place has secrets from me?
You're not a damn god, Magnus. You don't know everything.
No. If I was one, it would be easier to make changes here without having to consider the fallout. Nevertheless, I know most things I need to. And many things I wish I did not.
Caleb stood as well.
Fine. But one of these days we're going to find out what the hell they did to turn you into such an asshole. And whoever is responsible for it, I hope I'm the one that gets to punch that bastard in the face.
Kale. And he left as well. Ari stood hesitantly. Poor Ari. Such an awkward being. So, should I go, or do you want me to stay, or should I teleport? Should I walk out? I don't know.
Shall I help clean up?
Magnus burst out laughing when he asked that.
Ari, you're so dutiful to the very end.
I don't believe it was that funny.
Go on. Chase down little Kale and soothe his temper. I'm sure he'll challenge you to a volatant match as usual.
If you're aware your actions are upsetting enough he needs to blow off steam, perhaps you should reflect on them.
Damn! Ari spitting some truth.
Whatever the rest of us are to you, to us, you are still a precious friend. The same is true for you, Morgan.
Ari, please, you're winning me back over to love you again. Oh, Ari!
We are already isolated enough in our current positions. There's no need to isolate yourselves further with secrets.
And with that, he was gone as well. Damn. I let out a slow breath as I ran a hand down my face. That had gone downhill fast. How long had they known he was keeping a major secret from them? And how many times had they tried to get him to reach out for help? How many times had he pushed them away? And now that had exploded because I couldn't think of an answer fast enough. I'm sorry about that. I should have just said I didn't know.
No, you weren't prepared for that kind of question. I understand. And your poker face is terrible anyway.
I haven't needed a poker face much, sorry. He returned to the sofa, sitting next to me.
I suppose that's a good thing. Living where you have to constantly guard your expressions or curate them for an audience is... Well, anyway. I suppose you probably wonder why I won't tell them.
I think I can understand it.
Can you?
I don't know if your thoughts are the same as mine, but I imagine they're similar, at least in part. I worry about the position I'll put them in if they know, or the position I'll put them in if I have to do something drastic, or what will happen if they ultimately don't support a decision I make. Not that I'm planning anything drastic. Besides, I'm sure a secret like yours is difficult to tell others. You probably wouldn't have told me if the situation didn't require it. Are we... Okay, we're back. Well, that sucked. I feel so bad for everybody involved in Endgame. They just need to go on vacation to an island somewhere. Okay, we've done this choice before, so we'll do that. And then, this is a choice we haven't picked yet, which is you know him better than I do. That gave me a moment of hesitation. I wanted to deny it was true, but it wasn't like Caleb was pulling those words from thin air. He'd known Magnus for so long, and I knew him a very short amount of time. Magnus had been a reliable ally, though, that much was true, but I also didn't think this was a good place to get into an argument about that. Well, you know him better than I do, I suppose. Then again, even Magnus had said that wasn't true. But I'd keep that to myself for the time being. Is this still... Yeah, this is still different.
I only wish he'd stop keeping things to himself. That thing that happened with you the other night, for instance. What his motives are. What he's planning. Caleb. I get it. Not the place for this.
Okay. Caleb didn't need any convincing that this was not the place for it. And apparently this is the last choice, so here we go. Not until you explain what's going on. But there was something Magnus wasn't telling me. Things that didn't add up. Maybe we leave and we get to, like, Lance's house, but she's not able to find him, and so that's, like, the end of it. But there was something Magnus wasn't telling me. Things that didn't add up. He seemed to know something about Lethe, but instead of telling me everything, he was pushing for... What? Running away? How far would we even get? I need you to tell me what's going on, Magnus.
There's no time to explain the situation in detail. Don't you understand? It could be minutes before someone realizes the council has been cut off. It's hours at most. We need to be far away by then.
Running away has always been a last resort.
We are at that last resort, Morgan. Or don't you trust me?
Trust. Speaking of trust, I've seen worse and other bad endings, honestly. I did. Or I wanted to. But it was difficult in moments it was obvious he was keeping important things from me. I wanted to trust him.
Morgan, we knew it would come to this. We talked about it, right?
There was a strange, pleading edge in his voice. You sound like you've already planned everything out.
To a degree. For years, I've tried to stay one step ahead of them and plan for every possibility. That means planning for everything. Escape. Takeover. Tearing this place to the ground so there's nothing left. Revealing everything. Changing the world if I need to. You can't actually be surprised by it.
It's just... We had talked about it, but now that the moment was here, I was reluctant. It was a point of no return. Something we couldn't walk back after we did it. I don't think it's wise to go alone. Not when one of us doesn't even know all the details.
If we mobilize the entire guard, we'll be noticed.
He looked away.
And they'll try to stop us.
I am not strong enough on my own.
You also have me. But your abilities are necessary for teleporting us out.
Is this... okay, still different. I suddenly remembered him watching my teleporting sessions with Ari. Sessions he pushed for. Ari had been thinking short-term escape plans, just to get me out of an immediate confrontation. Magnus had already been planning something bigger, hadn't he? Magnus, I think we need to talk to the others and come up with a more direct plan. Something to deal with the problem, not just leave.
No! Morgan, there's no reasoning with them at this point. You weren't at that meeting. You don't know them. I do. I know how they are. They'll destroy you if they think it'll make you more obedient.
He grabbed me by the shoulders, that feverish light back in his eyes. There was something frightening about his behavior. Frantic, almost frenzied.
Let's just go. Let's get out of here. Do you realize what will happen when we're gone? They'll have to fix things, and we can find a way to...
Magnus, let me go. Please. His eyes went wide, and he stepped back, laughing again. Laughing hard enough tears sprang to his eyes. He planted his palm against his forehead, laughing hard.
Wow, I failed all around, haven't I? Just like always. I couldn't protect a damn thing. Not even you.
It's not over yet. Let's... For a split second, it was like the air had been sucked out of the room, and at the same moment, like a lightning bolt went through my body. The feeling of foreboding rocketed through me. Excuse me. It was too late. We delayed. I whirled around, throwing up a shield a second before the fist connected with it. Shit! It was the people from earlier today. I recognized them right away. I reached for Magnus, but someone else had already grabbed him and taken him to the ground. I'll be back for you! The first thought I had was to find Vaughn and the others. I expanded my sphere and relocated to the garden, where I expected Caleb and Ari would be. There wasn't time for a protracted search, so I made my best guess. Teleporting with the shield was something I hadn't mastered yet, though. Which is why I stumbled into the garden and realized they'd predicted that move 2 seconds too late. I felt more than heard the sigh burst. It was point blank. I didn't even finish the thought before the strange and painful static exploded in my mind as I went down. And everything just stopped. Point blank. Damn, we got both of us. We disappointed Magnus in the end. But at least it ended quickly, you know? It was like a painful band-aid that you like rip off, and it was just over, you know? We don't know what happened after that. It's just the end. It was more scenes like leading up to the bad ending were painful than the bad ending itself, if that makes sense. Just like the guard yelling at each other and desperately trying to reach out to Magnus and stuff was heartbreaking. Anyway. Alright, we've made it through another bad ending, guys. Just one more left to go. I'll see you there.